I don't know if you can hear that. Well, exactly. No creaks from that BB. Working perfectly. So hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now in the last video you saw me convert the bottom bracket to take a Shimano crank from a GXP. That's all done, that's working really well. I've just got a few more jobs to do on the brakes and the gears before we can take this bike for a little bit of a last ride and a bit of a final review. So let's check out the jobs now. I've got to bleed the brakes, so we'll do that today. The back one I haven't really bled at all. Hook up the rear mech, I've done the front mech. For the first time ever, I actually read the Shimano manual on how to set up these new series mech. I have to say, since I've actually read the manual and done it properly, the difference is like night and day. It actually shifts so much better when you set up as they tell you to do. I think with these new style mechs, compared to the big sort of lever arm, older style ones, they're harder to set up, but when they are set up properly, they work better. Whereas the old big lever style ones, they were more forgiving to set up, but they were still a bit heavy, and they didn't work as well as these ones. But bottom bracket, really pleased with that. I've wound on quite a lot of preload, but it's still spinning absolutely brilliantly. Got all the brakes on. Still need to do the bearings in the rear wheel, but I need to put the cassette and disc on to be able to do the gears basically and take it for a little ride, so I'll have to get those off again to push the bearings out. I don't rate the bearings that come with these prime hubs actually. Now I've ridden them, they didn't last very long. So I've got a set of NSKs. They are 6902s, 4 of them. So I've got those ready to go in. Thompson Elite seat posts already on, stem and bars on. Need to put a bit of fibre grip on the bars. Bleed the brakes, so that's it. Rear mech, gears, brake. So on this bike I've gone back to 140mm rotors. You normally use 160s, but when I was riding this bike I found the front end of it really stiff. It's got a very stiff head tube, down tube, not a lot of bending compliance in the fork either. And I found the 160s actually to be a little bit powerful and quite hard to modulate, particularly if it was wet. So I've gone down to 140s for this bike, should suit it a bit better. The front wheel lacing is quite stiff as well, so it's quite hard to modulate the 160s. So we'll try out the 140s. Gone back to Ultegra. I was using XTRs, but Ultegra kind of suit the bike. I mean, that's what comes with the group set, or is supposed to come with the group set, so I've stuck with Ultegra. But yeah, apart from that, it's almost done. Looking pretty nice. A bit of a shame to sell it now really, but has to go. Now this model year Supersix Disc is actually quick release on the back, it's not through axle. Through axle on the front, but on the back it's 135 quick release, so that's kind of like the old cyclocross standard. But anyway, the cycling media will tell you that through axles are stiffer and you have to have through axles for a disc bike. Well, actually that's not the case. The clamping load you get with basically an M5 with a mechanical advantage cam on it arguably is higher than you can use on a M12 thread, like i.e. a through axle. So if you put 5 Newton meters on an M12 thread and you put 5 Newton meters on an M5, the axial load, or the tensile load you get in the bolt, is higher on the M5. Now that might seem crazy, but go and look it up in bolt charts, fastener charts and stuff like that, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you're just talking about clamping load, quick release could be better. And actually the stiffness comes from the whole rear triangle. So when you hear bike reviewers in cycling media saying, oh, through axles are stiffer, ask them what they actually mean, put them on the spot and say, what do you actually mean by through axles are stiffer? Because in terms of clamping load, you're probably getting more from a quick release, and I'll do a video on that soon. Now if you are going to do a quick bleed, these are the only parts you need. You need a cup, the adapter for 105, Drivetrain and Ultegra. If you don't have the adapter, this screws straight onto the mountain bike levers. If you've got a road bike lever, you need the little adapter. And mineral oil, and these are the only 2 things you need. Peel back the hood and get this little bolt here, which is a 2mm Allen key. Now have a cloth ready, because when you back off this you might get a little bit of oil seeping out, and for God's sakes don't let the oil drip down onto your pads and rotors. Then what you need to do is just by hand screw that adapter in just till it beds up with the O-ring, and then you're ready to go. Next thing you need to do, before you remove the plunger and the O-ring, you need to fill this cup with oil. About half a cup's fine, or basically anything just to fill the bottom of the cup before you pull the plunger out. Then you can pull the plunger out and let the bubbles rise up. I've pulled the plunger out, filled it half with oil, and now I'm pumping the brakes. You might have just seen that first bubble, and there's another one, another one, another one, another one. So even though the brakes felt firm, there's a lot of air in this system. I'm just pumping the brakes. I've not even used the bleed block that goes in between the pistons and the caliper. I've just left the pads in. Now don't worry about this oil, it's not too corrosive, unlike the dot oil which SRAM brakes use. This is just standard mineral oil, so don't worry if you drop it on the floor or drop it on your hands. Just wipe it up. It's not going to strip the paint like dot oil does. So pretty much stopped the bubbles now, and the lever feel has got a bit better. Some people leave this overnight to get it really good. I'm not going to do that. But I might just go and ping the brake hoses with my finger a little bit to try and agitate some air if there's any air left. Now don't worry, you don't need to discard this oil, and actually to save pouring it back into the bottle, I'm just going to swap this one straight to the other lever without even moving anything. So I'm going to take the other lever's bolt out and just swap it straight over, just to save time. Now there's no air at all coming out this one. The lever feels good straight away. I actually can't get any bubbles out of that one, so that tells me that when I connected the hose I didn't get any air into the system. And the factory bleed on the rear brake is quite good. Yes, this is the rear brake. I am from the UK. And don't forget, before you remove the cup, put the plunger back in, make sure it's seated. Now you can probably tell a bit about my personality here. I've left the two jobs I hate the most right to the end. One, put the chain on. Two, bar tape. Now there are many different ways to size a chain, and my favourite method actually is to put it in small, loop the chain around the drivetrain, and then just take enough links out just to take the last bit of slack out the chain. And then if you rely on Shimano designing the mech right, the length of the cage and the size of cassette you're running, your chain won't be too short when it's in big. So that's the chain cut to length. Now remember to install it with the logos facing out. And like I said, if you do it this way, you've only got yourself to blame if you fuck it up. If you do it the other way, you might be thinking, did I get the rule wrong? Was the rule wrong? Do it this way, you've got to do it right basically. This is why I love Shimano. They install this pin just enough so you can hook the chain together and it just catches on the link, so it actually doesn't come undone again, and then it's easier to drive in with the tool. Brilliant, really well thought through. So that's it all connected, and you can just see I've just taken the slack out of the chain in little and little. And then, like I said, if the cassette's the right size and the mech's the right cage length, there'll be no problem in big. And it's just easier to do it that way than rather than having loads of tension in the chain when you're trying to connect it. That's it. All done. Bar tape next. There we go. All done. Let's take it for a ride. Out riding the freshly built Supersix. Found a pretty steep gradient. Alright, welcome back. On some very steep gradients. I don't know if you can hear that. Well, exactly. No creaks from that BB. Working perfectly. It's getting dark, going home, and that's it, never to be ridden again. Give us a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this kind of thing. Cheers.